My name's Candy McCabe and I co-lead this palliative incubator. And I just wanted to say a really warm welcome to everybody who's joining us today to celebrate the launch of the NIHR supported palliative and end-of-life care research incubator. My co-lead, Christina Fall, is also on the call, and she will be taking over the chair halfway through the meeting. And then our wonderful project manager, Katie Williams, is also with us, and she is busy handling all the background administration. We really hope you enjoy the event. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We've been overwhelmed by the number of people who've expressed an interest in this event, and which has been fantastic. But it does mean that we'll need to ask you just to keep your cameras off and to mute so that we can maximise the bandwidth that we have, because we know we're well testing the limits of the number of people that Teams can accommodate. If you have colleagues, friends who couldn't get in and couldn't join the event, we are recording this session, and that recording will be put on our website as soon as we can afterwards. So please do feel free to share that around your networks and encourage people to look at it. And sincere apologies if there are people who tried to join but can't get in there. The other thing to say is that we've got quite a busy schedule, but towards the end, we've got an opportunity, we hope, for you all to be able to ask questions. And if you want to put questions into the chat as you go, then please do so. And we will try and respond to those as quickly as we can, either in today's session. And if afterwards there's groups of common questions, then we'll put responses to those on our website. I think that's probably all of the housekeeping things. The three of us, so Christina, Katie and I, just wanted to say a huge thank you for the wealth of support and the warmth that we've received so far in the early stages of this incubator. And we really want this to be an inclusive community. The three of us are just helping to steer things. This is definitely not our incubator. We want this to be your incubator and to really make the most of it. And we want it to be a very inclusive community. So we're really confident and happy that so far we've had so many people approach us from across the UK, not just England. And we really welcome people at any stage in career, even if you're just thinking about maybe research might be of interest. We also want people from a wide breadth of professional backgrounds, and we also really welcome members of the public. We need that public involvement to be embedded throughout everything that we do. So as people come in, I'm just going to move and so that we have a quick look at our agenda, which some of you perhaps may have seen already. And the first part of our agenda will be a welcome from our colleagues working in the NIHR. And then our middle section is we're hearing from people in our community. So two early career researchers, Kathy Rogers, Kieran Potts, and then somebody who probably needs no introduction whatsoever, Professor Irene Higginson, who is going to tell us what, as a very experienced and person who's so well recognised and renowned within our community for all of the work that she has done through her career in promoting research capacity and capability. She's going to give us a view about where she feels the incubator may take us and the opportunities. Christina and I will then tell you a little bit more about what your incubator has to offer you. And then we'll have some panel of speakers, all of our speakers from this morning, and a few of our subgroup leads to join the questions and answers. And we will throughout be really encouraging you to look at our website and become a member so that you are formally joined into that community and can make the most of all the opportunities that we have to offer. So we're going to start on with the presentation, which is a recorded presentation from Professor Dillow, who is the NIHR Senior Investigator Dean of the NIHR Academy and serves on the NIHR board as Scientific Director for Research Capacity and Capability. And Professor Dillo is just going to tell us a little bit more about the NIHR, but specifically about the incubator. Please do let me know in the chat if you can't hear, but I'm really hoping this all works. Oh, I don't know what quite happened there. Have you? I'm sorry. That's well, apologies. We've lost the connection there. Zoom. Oh, just going to move on a bit. Excellent. Thank you very much. Fantastic introduction to just get us into that frame of mind about what is an incubator, which has certainly when we first started this project, we needed educating about that. So that's a really useful overview. I'm now going to call on Humera Abbas, who works really closely with our particular incubator. She's our particular person from the NIHR who's there to support us. And Humera is the Senior Programme Manager at the NIHR Coordinating Centre. And she's kindly going to tell us a little bit more about the NIHR and what incubators can and have achieved in the past. So thank you, Humera. I've seen you on the participants list, so welcome.
Thank you, Candy. Thank you for the introduction. It's really good to be here. So firstly, I'd like to wish you a warm welcome on behalf of the NIHR and would like to congratulate the palliative and end-of-life care research community for securing an incubator award. As Candy has said, this isn't an award for a specific individual. This is an award for the area or discipline. So congratulations. So my name is Humera Abbas and I'm a Senior Programme Manager at the NIHR Academy. I'm here to give you a quick overview of what we do at the Academy and how how the palliative and end-of-life care incubator links to the NIHR. The incubator programme is extremely important in that it helps build research capacity and develop research careers in areas where there's a need on a national level. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to start by giving you some background. So the NIHR's mission is to improve the health and wealth of the nation through research. And for every £1 invested in the NIHR, society receives £13 in benefits. Next slide, please. So the NIHR addresses 6 key areas which are outlined in this diagram, and in the top right-hand corner you'll see that we aim to attract, train and support the best researchers to tackle the complex health and care challenges of the future. Next slide, please. And the purpose of the NIHR Academy is to develop a highly skilled academic research workforce capable of advancing the best research which improves health and care and benefits society and the economy. So this involves equipping researchers with skills and experience necessary to collaborate effectively across multiple sectors, as well as equipping them with the correct experience training to progress in their research careers. Next slide, please. So we have a large research community of active NIHR Academy members, and as of 24-25, we had a total of 6,894 members, and we're growing. So our membership in 2023-2024 was 6,119 members. So you can see that growth. And some of this growth can be attributed to the presence of our incubators. Next slide, please. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the awards and programmes that form the NIHR Academy offer. I don't have the time to go into a great amount of detail, but you'll see from this schematic the breadth of opportunities that are available. And these are organised by career stage. So most of our awards and fellowships offer funding for some or all of an individual's salary, flexible FTE options, funding for conference costs, PPIE costs, training and development costs, master's or PhD fees, research costs, and for our more senior awards, research support, post costs too. Information on our programme of awards and activities can also be found on our website. We also have some capacity building initiatives across the NIHR, which we refer to as NIHR infrastructure. So these are the biomedical research centres, the applied research collaborations, the patient safety research centres, the health protection research units, and the 3 NIHR schools. Further information about NIHR infrastructure can also be found on our website. Next slide, please. So I'll now give you some more details about the NIHR incubator programme more specifically and how incubators work. Next slide, please. So here's, on this slide, you'll see 3 diagrams. These are our current previous incubators. So the incubators that were competitively awarded as part of the 2022 competition are in the green table. Incubators that were awarded as part of the 2024 incubator competition are in the blue table, which includes palliative and end-of-life care. And incubators that we previously supported can be found in the red table. Again, further information about our current and previous NIHR incubators can also be found on our website. Next slide, please. So what are incubators? I mean, I really struggled to explain this, and it's taken me a couple of years to actually quite be able to put this in words, actually. Next slide, please. So I sometimes find the concept difficult to explain, and it's not what it sounds like. So it's not like the image on this slide with the baby chicks in an incubator. However, the principle is pretty much the same. So the incubator program is meant to provide that short-term support to areas or disciplines, so that boost where there is a need to build research capacity and develop research careers. So incubators delve into the complex issues and barriers that exist in capacity building in a particular area and are led by a community who are embedded in and who have forged careers in these areas. And the funding enables the community to bring together key stakeholders to suggest and implement solutions to building research capacity in a sustainable and meaningful way. So NIHR incubators play an important role in attracting, training and supporting researchers to tackle the complex health and care challenges of the future within their specific areas and disciplines. Their focus is on building academic research capacity, but we also say that there should be consideration of a broad spectrum of research careers, which includes research delivery. So the Palliative and End-of-Life Care Incubator was awarded as part of an open competition in 2024, and the application was deemed as fundable by the review panel as it was able to demonstrate the gap and the need to build research capacity and develop research careers in the field. Next slide, please. So the key objectives that underpin the incubator initiative are to identify the gap and the need to build research capacity at that national level and to develop solutions, support underrepresented groups in which research capacity is particularly low, attract individuals into health and care research within the incubator specific area or theme, and provide that additional training and support to increase applications and success rates for NIHR funding. So they are intended to provide a spotlight on a particular research area, discipline or profession that will benefit from some additional community-led support to help boost academic research capacity with consideration again of a broad spectrum of research careers. So the NIHR supports incubators rather than being too prescriptive about the activities they undertake or the way they are organised. Next slide, please. So there are several key concepts that underpin the incubator model. So first and foremost, it's incubator status, and that's previous slide, please. So that is recognition by the NIHR that there's a need to build research capacity on a national level within the area or discipline. So incubators are bespoke in nature, and as such, each incubator will have different priorities and will progress at different rates. They will be expected to set their own objectives and KPIs relevant to their field or discipline. For example, some areas are new and emerging with small numbers of early career researchers who would benefit from networking, peer support, mentorship, whilst other areas struggle to attract people into academic pathways, and therefore mechanisms that would raise awareness and promote the benefits of research in the area may be more appropriate. To be successful, incubators will need to be field-led, although NIHR Academy can provide some support. The very individual nature of the challenges is different to the areas and disciplines, and means that solutions have to be developed and delivered by the leaders within the field. Incubators bring together a community led by a steering group in an area or discipline to explore the challenges experienced by those working in the field. They'll work to understand why there's a capacity issue, whether this is due to not attracting people or losing researchers due to the blocks in career pathways. Working in partnership with the NIHR Academy will be key in developing meaningful interventions that will build research capacity in the future. So the concept of critical mass is key. So in small fields, there can be a sense of isolation felt by researchers, and that linking together of different research centres can increase that sense of community felt by trainees and increase the opportunity for capacity building. Incubators include equality, diversity, and inclusion as a founding principle that is reflected throughout their activities, including the composition of the steering group. And incubators will proactively work alongside NIHR and partners to increase awareness of and exposure to research in relevant areas and to build solutions rather than become a lobbying group. So the NIHR Academy and the broader NIHR already offer a wide range of personal awards and pathway support schemes. The issue that the incubator areas share is the low number of people attempting to access this support. Another key aspect of the incubator concept is that concept is therefore better access to current funding opportunities. Both the incubator concept in general and individual incubators specifically represent an innovative approach to solving what are often quite deep-rooted problems. So as I've mentioned, NIHR supports a number of incubators and has done in the past as well. And you'll see on this slide some of the impact that has been reported by incubators. So incubators connect with their target audiences to understand their needs and have demonstrated impact in several key areas. They've played a vital role in building and strengthening research networks and communities whilst supporting career development through practical training and knowledge enhancement. Additionally, they've supported successful grant applications by providing guidance and individual support throughout the process. Incubators have created more networking opportunities, facilitated connections, collaborations, and offered that essential support and resources to their members through their activities such as coaching, mentorship, events, and the dissemination of research opportunities. And by successfully raising the profile of their respective areas and disciplines, incubators have led to an increase in research engagement and awareness of research participation opportunities. They've contributed to capacity building by creating resources such as online training materials and by providing members with opportunities to develop research skills through training, workshops, internships, and research training programs. These efforts are making a tangible contribution to research capacity development, career progression, and improved opportunities for fostering that collaboration, whilst also supporting positive change in the health and care sector. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Humera. That was such a helpful overview and beautifully clear about the opportunities that we have, starting out with a new incubator and all of the things that are possible for us. So thank you so much. And you'll be around for our panel of Q&A a little bit later on. So any questions that anybody has, please either pop them into the chat would be the easiest for us. And then as the meeting's going on, Katie's assimilating common questions so that we can put those to the panel at the end. Lovely. Thank you ever so much. So that takes me then on to our next speaker, who is Kathy Rogers, and she's a senior lecturer and PhD student at the University of West of England in Bristol. And Kathy's just going to share some reflections that she has about her career and the potential opportunities that the incubator can offer. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Kathy Rogers. I'm a nurse. I'm a PhD student at the University of the West of England, and I'm a member of the Palliative Care Research Incubator Steering Group. Big thank you to Candy and Christina for inviting me to speak and for leading this really important project. It's a pleasure to be here and share a little bit about my early career research story and talk about the opportunities that the incubator can provide for you. It's amazing and really heartening to see the number of people on this call today, and it just highlights the importance of research in this area and the motivation that must exist to increase research capacity. Next slide, please. So I thought I'd share a little bit about my story as an early career researcher. So some years ago, I was fortunate to complete a Macmillan-funded internship alongside my MSc dissertation. And I really caught the bug for research then and really wanted to develop further. UE was running an internal doctoral capacity building programme, and with encouragement from my MSc supervisors, I successfully applied for this programme. So I joined the scheme and spent some time building a supervisory team and an application to enrol on a PhD programme. And that's where I am now. I'm studying part-time for a PhD which explores informal caregiving in non-malignant respiratory disease at the end of life. During this time, I also founded a network called the Deaf and Dying Collective, which promotes teaching, research, and public engagement in all things death and dying. And this has really helped me to stay connected to a wide range of the amazing work going on in this field. And I was thinking about things that have been instrumental in helping me in my research so far. And first and foremost, most important of all for me is the people around you. So having passionate mentors who believe in you, who will encourage you and champion your work is absolutely vital. So seek out your folk. Working in a supportive organisation is also really helpful. I study my PhD part-time alongside my role as a lecturer in nursing, and managing time is always a juggle. So I really rely on the understanding and the commitment from my organisation that allows me to focus on my research. Also, it takes endurance and resilience. It's a bit of a cliche, but this is a marathon and not a sprint. Setbacks will occur, and really you need to bounce back and keep going. Again, that comes back to having those supportive people and structures around you. Also, to say yes to opportunities whenever you can, even when it seems a bit daunting. And I'll mention more about daunting experiences in a slide or two. Next slide, please. I am absolutely delighted to be part of the Palliative Care Research Incubator, and I see so many benefits and opportunities for early career researchers and mid-career researchers. For me, the incubator is about coming together, making connections with passionate and talented researchers across the field. This networking can lead to finding mentors and peer support in this really generous and welcoming community. People are endlessly generous with their time and wisdom. It's a place to hear about interesting work and actually how to undertake that research in the area. Palliative care is not always easy, and I think we can learn a lot from the experience and wisdom of others. You never know when you're going to come across a really game-changing piece of the puzzle for your work. And being part of the NIHR infrastructure, there might be access to extraordinary opportunities. And I'd like to tell you about an opportunity that I had recently. Next slide, please. So via the incubator, I was fortunate to be selected to attend the 16th annual NIHR doctoral training camp, which focused on writing successful funding applications. It was a 48-hour camp for doctoral and postdoctoral students, and at the beginning it was likened to the apprentice for healthcare research. Not an inaccurate description, it transpired. On arrival, we heard from a range of inspirational speakers from the NIHR. Then the 70 or so delegates were split into teams to write a funding application to a fictional research programme and get ready to present it to a panel of experts. Daunting doesn't quite cover how it felt at the beginning. Each team had a mentor and a PPI expert, and we worked together to write the bid, which mirrored a real-life NIHR application. It was intense and challenging and rewarding and hilarious and even fun at times. And some key learning for me, which I think applies to many aspects of early career research, is here for you. So I like a comfort zone, I really do. But you have to step outside of that zone to develop and challenge yourself. I've been a nurse for 20 years. I've worked in academia for 10. So I have some long established comfort zones. And being a novice again can feel unsettling at times, but it's okay to feel like that. Returning to a state of not knowing, often not even knowing what I don't know, is a challenge and requires reflection and openness to feedback. And listening well to that feedback is really key. So the experience of those around you is like gold, and they know the things that you don't yet know. Protected time is really important. At the camp, we were fully supported to focus on only the task at hand. And it's not always easy, but striving to protect your time as best you can is crucial. And there was an idea presented at the camp which really stuck with me, and it's called Problem Gap Hook. And this is about 3 elements for concisely explaining your work to others in a compelling way. The idea is to imagine that you are joining a conversation at a party. Identify a shared interest or problem people are talking about already, Establish a gap in the thinking that needs to be filled, and then set out your hook to convince others what you are saying really matters. And I think that's a helpful way of focusing our work. At the end of the camp, I felt proud of my team and of myself for achieving what we initially thought was impossible. I also came away understanding the NIHR better and believing in the commitment of the NIHR to support doctoral students. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for listening. It's great to be here, and I look forward to meeting lots of you in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy, so much for such an inspirational overview. And if any of you listening are in a similar place as Kathy, that's sort of just starting out in your PhD or perhaps coming towards the end of it, Kathy and her colleague Melanie Diggle, who also attended the same doctoral training camp, they've got a presentation on October the 8th, a webinar, which I think Katie's put into the chat. So please do sign up for that so you can learn a bit more and hear about all the benefits and the challenges of attending that event. Thank you, Kathy. Our next speaker is Kieran Potts, and Kieran is a Senior Research Fellow at the North West Ambulance Service NHS Trust, and he's going to tell us from the allied health professional perspective the benefits of the incubator. Thank you, Kieran.
Do apologise, I've just unmuted. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me, Candy, Christina, Katie. I'm a member of the steering group for the incubator. I'm always awestruck being surrounded by quite incredible talent, really, when you look in the chat box and the attendees. So I think imposter syndrome is very much a real thing. It's something that I think we'll continue to feel regardless of where we get to in our careers. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm a paramedic by background. I qualified, speaking of imposter syndrome, I qualified when I was 20. I was told very frequently that I looked too young to do the job. I'm not told that anymore, I wouldn't say, 2 kids later. So very much, yeah, certainly I've matured into my role, I would say. I'd say matured is probably a strong word, but I've started to learn about research in a way that I hope is really valuable to others as well. So next slide, please, Candy. Thank you. So I guess every profession will have a framework, whether that's nursing, whether that's an AHP or a medical career. There's always a framework that it took me a while to realise that I wanted to align myself to this, I guess is fair to say. I was living and working in a busy city centre. I was seeing lots of major trauma. Going to all of the incidents that you see happening on casualty on similar programs, and thinking, you know what, this is quite an interesting life as a paramedic, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I think that's where the incubator kind of marries itself well to people who are really starting to think about a career in research. I didn't really know that I wanted to do research, I think it's fair to say. I knew that I was quite an inquisitive person, probably not a natural researcher at the time, but naturally inquisitive. Anyone that knows me knows that I love a chat, so I'll always want to find out about people. My toddler talks more than me, which is an impressive feat. But I think in terms of paramedics and what we do in the world, similar to other AHPs, we get a lot of protected time with patients and people across their kind of lifespan. So palliative care almost. It was something that I'd thought about, and it wasn't until I'd attended quite a few kind of upsetting incidents and events that I thought, actually, paramedics really do have a key part to play here, alongside everyone else, really, as part of that wider team. So the framework on the left for AHPs, I guess similarly to other careers, other backgrounds, I have danced around this framework a little bit. This is from the College of Paramedics. It's up to date. And I started out very much kind of on the outside ring at the time as a newly qualified paramedic. I worked in Manchester, as I've mentioned. I went to lots of kind of interesting cases, lots of incidents involving alcohol, which were always eye-opening because I was 20, turning 21. So in some countries I couldn't even consume it myself. So very much an eye-opening experience. I think moving into that role, my first kind of step was onto the leadership and management side. I was a team leader. Again, I think I was around 23, 24. And that was a big exposure to kind of what I wanted to learn about myself. So I think it's good. There's going to be lots of people here who have had similar career steps that have felt right at the time that they've taken on, and then actually it's the people you've met because of that career step that have really shaped you. It was at that time really that the opportunity was mentioned to me to take on a research paramedic secondment. So I know lots of secondments happen across kind of the NHS, and sometimes it's a really good way to kind of dip your toe. I didn't really know what I was kind of supposed to be doing or what I was doing. There was a trial to support and lead, but it was around that time that I started to really learn a bit more about kind of what I wanted to do, I guess, in my career. So I completed a secondment, and I went back to another part of the structure that it married itself up again to my kind of aspirations, I guess. But I moved into the clinical practice sphere. So the only one I've not really ticked off currently is education, I guess. But there's time left, I guess, before retirement to give that a go. Advanced paramedic was the next step I kind of took, the kind of specialist element of practice. And whilst it was enjoyable, I did undertake a small part of research. It kind of scratched the itch, I guess, for clinical practice, and gave me that idea of what I wanted to achieve and balance. So I then took on the role that was new to our trust in the Northwest as a senior research fellow. I think that there's always an assumption that I know what I'm talking about because of the title. That does precede me sometimes, but I'm always surrounded by people that do know what they're talking about, which is handy. And I think that's, again, a real big benefit of the incubator, that you'll always be able to find somebody who can support you through kind of an unknown or a period of your career that might seem a little bit kind of cloudy. So there's certainly that element of coaching, mentorship, peer support that really lends itself well to, I guess, to AHPs. Me speaking personally as a paramedic, you know, there's not many paramedics, I guess, that I'm immediately aware of that are undertaking PhD qualifications specifically looking at palliative care. But there are some. I met one when I started my program last week at Lancaster. So it is happening and it is growing. So I guess every profession will see similarities here, and hopefully there's something here for you that you can look at and say, actually, I can try a few different things out. But if you really want to hone your skills and you've landed upon, you know, the event here because palliative care is the one for you, that there's so many people that will be so willing to support you. And I think that's the start of the conversation, really. So next slide, please, Candy. Thank you. So I think this is kind of where I initially started out. You know, you've got the ambulance, you've got the helicopter in the background, you've got the air ambulance response unit, we've got all the kind of exciting side of paramedic practice, I guess, that we train for, that we drill for, and we really make sure that we're kind of practicing at the sharp end of clinical practice. But I think alongside that, there's still conversations around death and dying, because unfortunately, despite all the skills that we hold, we do have to have difficult conversations, and we do have to relay bad news to people. I think in terms of that research interest, I think that's what I've really started to explore as being a member of the steering group as well. There's so many people who have lived experience, who have professional experience, that are sharing that input and insight, and that's exactly what the incubator kind of appealed to me as a new researcher, really, as an early career researcher. And certainly as a paramedic, the kind of feeling that I'm not on my own. If an incubator had existed probably 5, maybe 10 years ago, when I was first starting to think about research, I really do think my career would have been slightly easier and slightly more straightforward. There wouldn't have been as many bumps in the road, I think, but I would have had slightly more assurance around the direction I was taking, because people would have supported me and said, you know, it's okay to do that. You might be the only person doing it, but that's all right, and you should really keep doing it. So I think that's something there, that there's strength in numbers, you know, surrounding yourself with like-minded people. You're always going to learn more if you're surrounding yourself with people who have tried different things, who have done different elements of research, who have undertaken certain qualifications. You know, I'm very early in my PhD journey, kind of 2 weeks in, and I think in that kind of train of thought, it's nice to know that there's people that have kind of moved across that ground before me that can really help me. So yes, I think getting to the PhD journey as well, it was through kind of peer support that I'd undertaken an internship, and I'd started to think about what that might mean for me with my local ARC, my applied research collaboration. And it is through that relationship that I've managed to gain some supportive funding for my PhD as well. So there is that element that if you don't ask, you don't really get. So it's certainly worth considering these conversations and building the networks, building the contacts, building the support, and sometimes asking the question about sponsorship and opportunities that are available, because it might just be the right timing. You might have done the pre-work and the support there. So certainly, I think the opportunities are almost endless, I'd say. I'd even go as far as to say they probably are endless, really, because of the number of people that are available to support us. So I hope that just gives a little bit of insight into kind of my thoughts, feelings. More than happy to, I'll be staying for the questions as well, but more than happy to answer any questions people might want to ask offline of experiences as well. I'll put my email in the chat for people. Thank you.
Yeah, so much, and that's such a great example of somebody who you had reached such a high level in your professional career and then moved into research, and that's a great example that actually research at any point in your career can become relevant, and it's often by the point that you've really advanced your clinical career that you know the area that you want to specialize in and things. So thank you so much for sharing those insights. Our next speaker really doesn't need an introduction from me. She's an inspirational role model within our speciality, Professor Irene Higginson, and she's going to join us today to tell us from a very senior leader's perspective what she feels are the opportunities for the incubator for our speciality and sort of why the incubator has been needed. Irina, I've seen you on the participants. Do you have some slides you wanted to share, or are you just going to talk to us? And
I was just going to talk. You can turn off the slide share if you want, or keep going. I'm here. Great, thank you.
See you better.
Yeah. So first of all, good afternoon, everybody, and let me start by saying my huge and wholehearted congratulations to you and everybody who's been involved in winning, launching and driving forward this palliative and end-of-life care research incubator. And also thank you for the honour of asking me to speak briefly to you. I have to say it's really inspiring to see this collective effort come together, and it's been really inspiring also to hear from those who've spoken already. And I would like to also just recognise the vital and important support of the National Institutes of Health Research, NIHR, not only for its funding, but now its commitment to this field and its commitment to building a more inclusive and impactful research environment. Now, I think all of us on this call, having had a look at some of the details of the people who are here, we all know the importance of palliative and end-of-life care. Particularly for those people who desperately need it. And we also know that the care that we offer at the moment isn't quite good enough, and there is much more to be done to help people. Yet, despite the profound impact and importance of palliative care and for patients and families and communities, and the fact that need is growing rapidly due to population changing, research support and capacity building has been lacking, and quite often we've had to rely on, and I'm very grateful to those few pioneering charities who have supported this space of research and capacity building in palliative care. But just to give you some of the stark figures, really, which I know went into the incubator application, in 2022, only 0.23% of the UK's almost 8 billion research funding, and that's research funding from government and charities, went into this area. And just compare that by contrast with the fact that about 10 to 20% of NHS funding is spent on the last year of life. That sobering contrast highlights both the scale of the challenge and the importance of the opportunity that this incubator brings. And just to give you a few more figures, it's great to hear of people building their careers in this area, but in the last 5 years, just under 3% of NIHR career development awards and only 1.4% of personal fellowships were actually awarded to palliative or end-of-life care. And within those numbers, we know even more that nursing, allied health professionals and social care professionals, who actually make up the large part of the workforce delivering care, remain underrepresented in research. So if we want to transform the future of care for the people who matter, then we need the evidence and the research, and the voices, expertise and leadership of these professions must be increased. Another challenge that I think this incubator is addressing very well is that of diversity. We do lack ethnic diversity in senior research leadership, and also we don't have enough research yet that addresses inequity in outcomes for people from underserved or minority communities. So we must make inclusion central, not just an afterthought. And then finally, infrastructure is a challenge, because at the moment only about 25%, so 1 in 4 of adults and children's hospices are research active. And that's a real challenge for many of them, because they rely on charitable funding for their activity, often from the local community, and it becomes difficult for them to build the infrastructure needed. And yet we know that when organizations are research active, and there's very good evidence of that, actually patients and families directly benefit from better outcomes and more responsive care. So I think I see 6 challenges that this incubator is very well placed to address: under-researched, underserved and under-researched communities, the organizational barriers that affect infrastructure and research knowledge, a scarcity of research teams, the growing demands that are facing us, particularly with increased multiple long-term conditions, and I will highlight that this is important for children and younger people as well as for older adults. The evidence gaps in crucial areas, which include symptom management, but also the wider emotional, social and spiritual care, and the need, I think, for more interdisciplinary research that bridges both service boundaries and cultural contacts. So each of these challenges is an opportunity, and an opportunity to build new collaborations, to grow diverse and sustainable teams, and to create research that responds directly to the lived experience of people and their families. And for me, that's why this incubator is so important. It's not just about having more money for research or increasing the numbers, but actually about building a research community that is inclusive, sustainable, and capable of tackling the complex realities of palliative and end-of-life care. And my personal view is that this will actually help wider healthcare, because actually these are the populations affecting much of healthcare for the future. And we need to do this by supporting early career researchers from the different communities I've mentioned, and create the leadership for the future. And the prize is clear. It will be more equitable and better outcomes for patients and families, and better research culture that reflects the diversity of our society. So I'm really going to end by saying, I think this is a moment for celebration, but also collaboration and commitment. And I think I'd encourage all the people on this call to commit to working together and to grow these communities, whether they're early career or more experienced researchers, and really to try and make sure that research in palliative and end-of-life care is not a luxury, as it has been seen in the past, but it is a necessity, so that everyone, regardless of their condition, background or circumstances, has the best chance of living well until the end of their life, and also dying well. Thank you.
Oh, Irene, gosh, you were just the right person to choose. Thank you so much. That was, yeah, just so inspirational. And I feel so excited. I was excited when we started this meeting, but you really added to that. And I do hope everybody else on this call feels the same. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, somebody just put in the chat, you know, call to arms, and that absolutely. So thank you so much. Irene, I hope you'll be around for our panel, because there've been a number of questions as you've been talking that have come up, and that will be fantastic. Thank you so much. I will hopefully be able to share my screen. Apologies for those who lost sound and had to come in and out during that. I strongly suspect that was, yeah, the part of the function of me stopping and sharing again, but hopefully we will get back on track again. So can you, sorry, apologies. I think it's coming. Hopefully you can all see that. I will move it on through. And here. Thank you for that reassuring thumbs up. That's great. There's nothing so daunting as chairing a meeting and being responsible for the slides. Yes, I have new respect for those people who make it look effortless. So the next section, Christina and I are just going to give you a bit more of an insight into what to expect from your palliative research incubator. And we really hope that this brings it alive to you and encourages you to become a member. Membership is free, of course, and you get access to everything we're going to describe here, as well as that sense of community, which Irene has so strongly encouraged us to join into. So I'm hoping that by now you've got a feeling that actually this is a completely inclusive community. We want people, no matter where you are in the stage in your career, the part of the UK that you're living in, and whether you're just thinking, is research of interest, or maybe you're somebody who's quite a little way down your career, you've finished your PhD, and you're looking to move to the next level, but are struggling to get there. We really want this to be available to you. We also, of course, want to really build on the fantastic community that there already is in palliative end-of-life care research. We want to grow that community. And the only way we can do that is by help with networking. And we know that we already have some fantastic research groups, but we also know that there's people out there who are working quite individually, and they need that networking and support. So we hope through the events like this, online webinars, but also some face-to-face events, that you can start to do that networking. And often, I know myself, I want to go and find somebody who looks a bit like me, who's got the same challenges, and we hope we can enable that. We also, of course, know that we have a lot of work to be done in palliative end-of-life care. We have not a lot of evidence for much of our care. And with the help of the James Lind Alliance and Marie Curie, we now have a very clear roadmap of the areas which are priorities to patients and to their families and the community as a whole, which we need to address. And we want to help shape that. So if you have ideas as well, then we really want to add those in. And ultimately, we'd love you to come and join our palliative care research incubator. And Katie has been putting information about how to become a member, and throughout we will share with you information about our website where we will be holding all of this information. So opportunities for your research career. We've heard beautifully from Kieran and from Kathy about how the incubator has already helped them in some ways. And we want to stress that this is about learning and networking. It's about providing opportunities to get together and to meet perhaps those senior leaders who you have held on a pedestal throughout your early career and thought, gosh, I'd never dare approach them. So to be able to meet them in person, network with them and get their pearls of wisdom. And that in part brings us back to mentoring. We hope to be able to connect you up with mentors. And as Kathy mentioned in her presentation, mentoring and her supervision panel has been essential to her. And I would echo that very much in my career. I've been very blessed by having fantastic mentors. And that is such a help to help guide you through the complex world of research. That skill development is also in there. So we'll have workshops which will help perhaps with writing skills, with designing research questions, and all of that is there for you. Leadership and future roles. The NIHR is world leading in developing research leaders, and we have the opportunity to be part of that NIHR family and all of the access to their training. And that really shouldn't be underestimated. The NIHR is a fantastic resource and has a wealth of opportunities. So we will be encouraging you to maximise the opportunities there, but also to be looking at role models across our community and thinking, actually, that's where I want to get to. How do I get there? And supporting you to do that. And of course, crucially, in order to do research, we need funding. So the NIHR very generously funded this opportunity, and there's many other opportunities which Humera was alluding to in her presentation. But of course, there's fantastic charities that are part of the palliative and end-of-life care community who also offer funding. But often you need a collaborative grant in order to do that. And one of our subgroups in particular is focused on collaborative grants, led by Catherine Walsh. And that is to enable us to build that community and to break down perhaps barriers that you may have encountered so that we can work across the UK and answer those key questions. So lots there to help you develop your opportunities. I'm now going to hand over to my co-lead and very good friend, Christina Fall, who's going to guide you through the rest of this, but tell you a bit more about the incubator.
Thank you, Candy. I hope you like my celebratory background, because this does feel so celebratory. I'm struck by some of the comments from speakers about the generosity of this community, about the importance of seeking out people with common interests and common understanding. Seeking out your folk was one of the things that Kathy said that struck me. And that speaks to the aim of the incubator, which is to improve care, as Irene very much emphasised there. Patients at the centre of this, patients and their families. But by catalysing a step change in something, we need to go from that very low research funding to a much more equitable, if not greater than that, share of the NIHR funding that is available in order to improve that care. And we're interested in both adult and children's palliative care as part of this endeavour. It's about changing that research culture. Irene mentioned that, and I was listening to the NIHR earlier this week speaking about their general ambition to change the culture of health and care, health and social care services, so that research is part of everyone's business. It isn't just about delivering care, it's about also the research that will improve that care, which was music to our eyes, certainly. We need to build that research capacity to deliver on that and to develop the future leaders in that. So we have quite some ambitious aims, I think, which we can do together, but Candy and I certainly can't do alone. So a first objective is to build our professional and geographically and ethnically inclusive membership. And I hope by now you've looked already at the QR code to fill in the membership form and become a member, because that will be the main vehicle that will be able to communicate to you about what's going on, and you'll be able to communicate with each other and with us as well. Because, as we've emphasised, we are facilitating this incubator, and we need your engagement and involvement in making it even more than we imagined in the first place. And there will be regular and virtual networking opportunities and resources, and some opportunities for knowledge exchange as well as development of knowledge. It's been mentioned already that excellence of involvement of We call it PPI as a shorthand, but it's the lived experience. It's the views of people who've been through it or are going through it, and what's important, how to best carry it out, how to share that information. We want to really embed that excellence in how we do research with that perspective within the incubator, and we have two fantastic leads in that, Helen Bulbeck and Helen Finley, who may be on this call and able to join the Q&A session. But it will be a theme throughout everything we do, and we have some people that will keep our minds strongly focused on that, as indeed the equality and diversity and inclusivity. So part of our diversity is in geographical areas of the UK and the developed nations. So we want to be sure that we are reaching and have network communication with every NHS region. There are every professional group that may be involved in research in this area, many of whom will label themselves as palliative care interested. Others will be interested in geriatrics, for example, or old age medicine or social care, but will be doing important work in research in palliative and end-of-life care. So that dimension of inclusivity, as well as all professional backgrounds, be they clinical or non-clinical researchers. We really want to focus on supporting people to get money to fund their careers. So that often is through fellowship applications, but maybe as part of being developing the skills, certainly in writing grant applications, but being part of grant applications to allow people to sustain their career. And an objective, of course, is to examine whether this 3 years of funding that we have is effective but needs to go on longer, and what that continuation strategy might look like. So we have 3 years of a small amount of funding, largely to fund our administrator, project manager, Katie Williams's time, and the thinking about the longer term future starts now. So next slide, please. Some mention of some names have already come up, and it's useful just to have those embedded in slides, so at least you can look at them later on. I strongly wanted to flag the role of the PPI in this, but people we haven't heard today are members of our subgroups. We're already sort of changing a little bit about the infrastructure that we have for the PRI, but we certainly have themes that we need on comms and marketing, training and education, collaborative grant writing, children and young adults. Some unfortunately aren't able to be here today, so it's useful for you to see their names in case that's an area that you really want to know more about, get involved in, flag your willingness to do things to be part of that network. So next slide, please. So some of the events have come up already. The October the 8th reflection on the NIHR doctoral training camp, which will be of interest to some sectors of people that are here today. And I think that's really important, that we will be doing events that everybody might be interested, and some that are focused on particular groups of people for particular reasons in their development. November the 11th is a face-to-face event in Newcastle, almost booked out already. That's focusing on developing research questions, so providing people new knowledge in how to write, formulate research questions, and then do some work to put that into practice with the priorities from the James Lind Alliant Marie Curie project work, to really think about how do we begin to address some of these really key issues through good research questions. And of course that would go into then potentially your ideas for your PhD or fellowships, or into collaborative grant writing. So that is focused on people who are involved in research at some level. Rather than interested people, because we've got restriction in numbers. So if you've not yet been involved in research, it's probably not the event for you, but there'll be lots of other events that are. On November the 27th, we'll be hearing virtually in a webinar from the really important work that Anne Finucane has been doing in Edinburgh, funded by Marie Curie, to look at the barriers to the research workforce in palliative care, helping us to build in this incubator on what the enablers might be. Certainly we are charged with looking and acting on potential solutions to some of those known barriers. So that will be really interesting. Another face-to-face event in London, which will be on those who are wanting to develop fellowship applications. What are the key things you need to consider in writing a successful fellowship application? We're not sure yet whether that will allow a hybrid audience or whether it will just be face-to-face. We're working that out as we speak, but we will let you know through information on the website and through newsletter communication if you've signed up to be a member. The priorities and projects session will be repeated in Bath. We are trying to make these events geographically varied so that gives more people an opportunity to travel to the one that is close to them. We also hope to have sessions at the Marie Curie conference and at the PCC symposium in March. And that is where we are in terms of our events at the moment. We've got some ideas, but we really want to hear from you as to what would be useful for you for us to consider putting on as events. It may be information about qualitative research methodology, for instance, or it may be a cross professional grouping kind of event. We're thinking particularly the focus of the NIHR is on care closer to home. So what should we be doing about how we get research to inform that change and meet that challenge? Next slide, please. Okay, so our next steps that we have in mind are growing that membership. So please communicate with your colleagues, particularly if you know people that feel quite isolated from this wonderful, generous community that we have here today. Please do cascade things as well as engage in things yourself. We need to understand the needs of early and mid-career researchers particularly. We will be doing that through engaging members in various subgroups, but also a survey of members to really understand what will help you most. But please feel free to approach us just individually as well. We will be developing some learning resources that you indicate will be helpful. We've got to consider how we find mentorship support for people. It's a need that is flagged up repeatedly, but one that's very difficult to address in terms of a cash-strapped climate and very busy people. But we will, with your help, find a way to do that. And we have committed to doing something at the end of the first year, which will be in June 26, that we will call a symposium. But at this stage, we're not sure what that should look like. Clearly, face-to-face events are fun, but it's limited in its numbers. And the challenges of virtual events have certainly exhibited themselves to us today. So your ideas on what that should look like and what it should contain would be really helpful. And I think that's the end of my slides there. Set to just flag our ways of communication, the website, the Blue Sky, the LinkedIn, and the email contact for us. The events are thick and fast at the moment, so please keep looking at the website, and we have been thinking of ways that we will trigger that for you through email comms as well. And the next slide, please. Okay, so I think we're going to turn the slides off at that point, aren't we, Candy, to invite the previous speakers, our PPI and our subgroup leads, please to turn on your cameras so that we can pose to you questions that have come up in the chat. And please keep putting questions in the chat if you've not yet done that. And I've managed to gather some in the early stages that may be helpful to start with, if that's okay. So first steps into research may be people who are not yet in a PhD, thinking that they might in the future, but need some steps before that. Kieran, I noticed that you mentioned research secondments. Kathy, you may want to expand on some of the funding that were available to you for fellowships or things that weren't perhaps even called fellowships. Humaira, you might have some suggestions on that as well. So please, shall we start with Kathy? I think you nodded your head.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I think my advice would be to try and understand the range of options available, because I think there's lots of different pathways in, and it's not a kind of standard, this is how you do it. So the more that you talk to people, the more that you get involved in the incubator and hear about opportunities, I think those conversations could really bear fruit as to potential pathways. So really it's kind of, I guess what I was saying in my presentation, it's about saying yes to opportunities, and you never know when that little nugget could be a real kind of fork in the road for you. I was funded internally as a member of staff at the university for a staff scheme. So keep your ears out for those kind of things wherever you are, as well as pursuing NIHR applications and getting advice on how to do that as well, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Kieran, would you like to add anything about your secondment opportunity?
Thank you. Yeah, just adding to what Kathy mentioned there as well. I mean, sometimes it's really difficult. I envisaged like an academic clinician or a clinical academic kind of career pathway, and it was always time that seemed to be, time released from clinical duties. That seemed to always feel like that was the barrier. I think a supportive employer is certainly one thing, but raising that conversation as early as possible, because sometimes you'll find someone that's done something in a certain way that might be kind of non-standard. There's not really a standard way, though. I guess non-standard's probably like the overall term to use here. But I think for me, with the secondment element, sometimes it is just reaching out and giving something a try. You might find that you really enjoy the route it takes you down. You might find during that route you speak to people that help to steer you in a slightly different direction as well. That's certainly what's happened with myself. I would not have envisaged ever undertaking a PhD. I said my master's was the last higher education that I would do, but before that I said the degree was the last thing I'd do. It just keeps snowballing. So I think you'll find people that will really help you to find those qualities in yourself that you can kind of explore a bit further with the opportunities available.
Thank you. Susie, I think you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I think it was particularly for clinical people in health or social care. Internships are really key, and I think that's there's NIHR funded internships, often more regional and local as well, or I know the research delivery networks fund some of those programs, chief nurse research fellowships or social care fellowships. So they're often, I think, from where I'm working in the region I am, the first step, before even an NIHR internship and then a pre-doctoral award. So there's sort of a pathway that can be followed, which seems to work very well, I think, for people from that first steps of exploring research. And I think the other thing is to be able to take the opportunity to shadow research teams and research delivery teams, in terms of getting that understanding about research in the first place. It's a good first step.
Thank you. And I can see that there's a lot of useful information about training in research and opportunities for that being put on by Matt. Thank you, Matt. Anybody else want to comment on steps into getting involved in research as an academic career? Humaira?
Something that I did want to add is that you'd be so surprised at how open the research community is to, supporting and helping those that are new to research. You don't have to go through a specific mentorship scheme, approach people, look online, find people in your field that you think you might want to contact and ask for support. And like I said, you'd be surprised at how willing researchers within different areas are to help individuals.
Thank you. Okay, there was another question at the other end of the spectrum. If you, I can see some hands up, but I'll come back to those if I may, just to get people thinking about this question. PhD by publication, which is kind of a very different beast. So there may be people who want to, in the expert panel, as it were, who might want to comment on that. Martin, did you want to comment on Martin Williams, did you want to comment on that first point about getting into research as a career?
Just very quickly, as others have suggested, research teams are always looking for people with hands-on experience to get involved to support their study. So even if you don't know a huge amount about research methods and applying for funding, those sorts of things, most research teams that are active in the area that you're interested in would love to have you on board. And when you do have a little bit of experience, there is an organisation, the Research Support Service, that will be delighted to help you to get your first fellowship award or your first small grant. So come and see us after that.
Thank you very much, Martin. And we'll do more about the Research Support Service through our work in the incubator, certainly. Irene, I think you have a comment.
It was really on the PhD by publication issue, because I've done and supervised both types of PhD, and I do favour PhD incorporating publications, which is what many UK universities call it rather than by publication, but some international groups call it by publication, and it may depend on the university, so you do have to check the regs. The reason why I now favour it, if possible, is first of all that one of the criteria for a PhD is the work worthy of publication. So if you've got your work already published, or some of it already published, you're kind of showing that you meet that criteria. The second issue, and I suffered from this myself, and I've seen many students struggle with this, is that if you write this enormous tome that's called a PhD thesis, you normally end up not really publishing anything until you've got to the end. By that point, you've already run out of money, you're back doing clinical work, or you're on to another piece of work that you have to get done. And it's really quite difficult then to turn it into papers. If you manage to write a couple of papers en route and you incorporate them in your thesis, then actually it saves you the job of writing something twice for two different audiences, really. So in general, my current preference, but you do have to temper it a bit by individual circumstances and individual universities, is to go for a PhD incorporating publications, which means that you don't have to publish everything, but maybe the initial review and some of the key results can be papers, and then you have text around it.
Thank you very much for that wisdom, Irene. Candy?
I was going to nominate a colleague who I've seen on the call, so Sharon Grieve, who did her PhD by publication, and I just thought she might want to say a few words about what the experience was like.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was actually thinking very much about my experience of doing a PhD by publication, which I would highly recommend. And for me, it suited my personal circumstances. I've been really fortunate to be in a research team where I had developed over many years, contributing more and more to the delivery and design and analysis and dissemination of research studies. So I'd collected quite a number of publications and could incorporate that into my PhD by publication, which was supported by the University of the West of England. I did it in a year to 18 months. It's writing up a critical commentary that sat around my publications, and I'm a real advocate for it. It was lovely to reflect on my research experience and just look back over my career and it helped me formulate where I wanted to go in the future, actually. So I won't say any more. I know it's a busy meeting, but I'm part of this group. So if anyone did want to meet and discuss, you know, a future PhD by publication, I'd be more than happy to share more of my experience.
Thank you. And there seems to be some general comments that universities differ in what they want and whether they'll accept it. There's a lot of useful information being put in the chat, which is most helpful, and we'll find a way to share that with the audience here and of course those that couldn't attend. If I could address, Andrew Thorns, your comment about the Association for Palliative Medicine. Just in general terms, we have linked very closely already with a number of organisations. So the Palliative Care Research Society, the Marie Curie and the Association for Palliative Medicine, particularly the Ethics and Research Group, but there may be other organisations that have a particular focus on research in palliative care that you could make us aware of, and any key links there. And it's great to hear, Andrew, that you're keen as that subcommittee of the APM to think how we might work together to enhance the achievement of the objectives that we want to do, so building research capacity and improving care. I know you had another question, Andrew, and it seems that other people want to think a bit about how we enable charitably funded hospice staff to increase this endeavour about research capacity. And there are complexities, particularly in just is research part of everybody's business in a charitable organisation theme compared to that will be a mandate for the NHS and maybe for social care, but it may not be within charitable hospices. What can we do to remove some of those barriers for staff? And there are some useful comments and resources being put in. Thank you very much for those. Does anyone in the panel want to say anything particular about building capacity within charitable hospices? I'm trying to keep an eye on people with their hands up. Candy, thank you.
I'm really happy to say something and also to speak to others, but offline at another point. So I'm currently the head of research and education at Dorothy House Hospice. And when I joined 6 years ago, we had no research team at all. And we're now up to 6 part-time colleagues. I can't say it's always been easy for all of the reasons that I suspect individuals on this call have struggled with in terms of finance, and of course as charitable organisations then the commitment is to clinical care. And so we were just very fortunate that the chief executive and our trustees were absolutely committed to Dame Cicely Saunders' model that hospices are underpinned by equal pillars of clinical excellence, education excellence and research excellence, and that has been our mantra. And that in order to deliver clinical excellence, we need that research to underpin it, and also the education. And the people who've been our greatest help were the clinical research network, so now your research delivery networks. They have been so supportive. And of course, we now have the new roles of residential setting leads and palliative leads as well for each region. So I would encourage you to call on them. I know as well in particular regions, they're building up communities of practice. So if you work in the Southwest, we have a very strong hospice community of practice for research, which is led by colleagues within the NIHR and with Claire Prendergast in our Dorothy House Hospice. But I'm equally aware that there's other communities of practice around other parts of the country. So do reach out to Sandra Pugh as the lead for the residential setting needs, and Amy Gadoud as the lead for palliative care setting needs, to just get that support that you need. And I probably said enough, but do reach out if I and my colleagues can be of any further help. There are research active hospices, and we're really keen to encourage others to come and join us.
Well, sadly, I think we've run out of time. I'm aware that people are having to leave already. So I think we'll bring that to a close, but it feels like we've just got going. And it's absolutely fantastic, all these thoughts that are coming through in the chat. It's certainly inspiring me to think, okay, we need to think about that, we need to think about that. So that's really helpful. So please do keep those thoughts coming. We'd also value your feedback on this event today, which will give an opportunity to put down any other ideas you have. I do apologize if we've not addressed a key question that you had for today. We will not ignore it. We will answer you individually, particularly the one about what's happening with children's theme. We'll update everyone on that. There is the QR link for the feedback form. And it remains really for me to thank you all for coming. It's made it such tremendous excitement about the event to know that you're with us, and that we have a huge community and network to work with and to have great ideas. To thank the people who've gone out of their comfort zone today to speak to such a large audience. For the contributions you've made and from the audience as well. And thank you, Katie, particularly for working so hard behind the scenes to get this in place today and to work so smoothly. Candy, is there anything that you wish to add to that?
Just again, a sincere thank you to the MHR for giving us this opportunity. We really do appreciate it and look forward to working with you for the next 3 years to make this as good as the community can. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And we'll finish at that point.
Goodbye. Thanks for your support.